You have tuned into The Ascension Show. Join T-Bone, Reverend Todd, and Northern Rebel for a kink-slanted freeform conversation podcast with topics related to healthy sexuality and the world around us.
Okay, so here's my thing. Here's my thing with labels. Here's my stance on labels. And I really have a tough time. And I'll be honest with you guys. Because on the one hand, I think they're great. Because they help you define how you see yourself or you know, you want others to see you within a community.
But you don't need 200...
Listen, let him finish.
Wait, I'm not done. On the other hand, they're kind of a trap. Because once you identify with this certain label, it's very tough for people to see you outside that label. Because you're not always going to be just that one thing.
No, the trap is that behind every label, there is somebody's perception of what that means.
Yes. So if you label yourself as a dominant, people expect certain things from you that you may or may not always want to deliver on. Or people have a perception of what that means to them that you may not fit. You may not actually fit within that perception.
Well, your definition, you may think I'm a dominant because of this, this, and this. And somebody else might think you're not a dominant because of this, this, and this.
Right.
And so then that labels mean nothing.
Well, let's let Paul say his thing.
Labels let you believe into that whole true way thing with what you're talking about, T-Bone. But, I mean, it's like, for fuck's sake, if you look at FetLife, there is quite literally, 25, 30, 40 fucking labels in here? Dominant, dom, switch, sub, master, mistress, slave, kajira, us, top, bottom, sadist, masochist, sadomasochist, disciplinarian, kinkster, fetishist, swinger, hedonist, sensualist, exhibitionist, voyeur, daddy, mommy, baby girl, baby boy, age player, little, middle, big, brat, princess, slut, doll, toy, cougar, bull, hot wife, cuckoldress, cuckold, cuck queen, sissy, furry, pet. I mean, it's fucking
cougar?
Christ.
I could actually be cougar?
You could be a furry cougar.
You could be a furry cougar.
Seriously, there's furry cougar?
I don't know.
No, there's just furry or cougar. I mean, and then it goes into rigger, rope top, rope bottom, rope bunny, leather man, leather woman, leather daddy, leather mommy, leather top, leather bottom, leather boy with a B-O-Y, leather boy with a B-O-I, leather girl. I mean, and the list goes on. It's fucking retarded.
So here's the thing, Paul. Here's the thing.
What labels do is box you the fuck in.
Okay, so why are they? So I'm trying to imagine. Here's the here's the coders from FetLife, right? And these people, as far as I know, pretty much try to get away with doing as minimal as possible because they don't make much money, to my knowledge.
Right.
So we don't know.
But I believe that's the case. If I'm wrong, please, John Baku or somebody, if you're listening from FetLife that actually does the programming, correct me on this. Tell me you make a shitload of money and you're looking for shit to do.
Right, exactly.
But what I presume is most of the developers I know, they don't want to be developing if they can avoid it. So the reason all those labels would be there is because somebody asked for them. And FetLife's pretty good about when enough people put in a request for something, they're like, okay, well, I guess we'll fucking do that. So someone had to put in a request for all those labels.
Adding a label in coding's nothing. All they're doing is pulling up from a spreadsheet or database.
Why don't they just have like a fill-in? Why can't you make your own fucking thing?
Right. If you really, I mean, seriously, just leave it open for people if they got to have their labels.
Well, you were talking about the development. I'm just saying someone had to say, hey, how come I can't label myself a cougar? Or how come I can't label myself as this? This is how I identify myself, so why can't I label myself with this in FetLife? So somebody has to identify as that to ask for that to be an available label for them to put on their profile, right?
Generally, I guess, yes.
So really, it's a response to public demand. So there are people out there who are identifying as at least one of those things.
Oh yeah, of course. Well, I'm sure there's more than one, but
so the question is it a valid label? Is one question.
Who determines whether it's valid?
Who determines whether it's valid?
Well, that's what I'm saying. So the fact that nobody can really decide means it must be a valid label.
Well, and this is going to piss a few people off, but the whole LGBTQQIASBZXYZ fucking craziness. I mean, they're taking a fucking acronym and bastardizing the fuck out of this acronym.
What is a CIS shit?
I usually stop after the Q.
Some of this shit I don't even know.
Right. The labels are. It's just motherfucker.
CIS
come on
is
already.
CIS is okay. So I'm going to help Tony on this one.
Right.
I think I know, but I don't remember what it.
So
I know it's
CIS is basically within
you're
the
born, whatever your gender is,
community,
what you were born.
You identify as the gender that you were assigned at birth.
Right. Why do we need a label for that?
That's what a CIS thing person. Because what would you call it? If someone is not identifying as the gender they were assigned at birth,
then they call them something, right?
But then what does that say about everybody else?
Then they are just what everybody else is.
What they're trying to avoid is the term normal being applied.
I didn't say normal.
Right, I get
no,
that.
but what they're trying to say is if the default, whatever the default is usually what is considered the norm, and therefore the normal.
Well, why aren't we getting pissed that people are talking about the word clean when we talk about STIs? Right?
Because
That's
it carries a stigma to it.
Right, and it shouldn't. So why don't we come up with some word for that? But no, we're not. We come up with the CIS bullshit. And it's like, you know what labels do? They're an excuse for somebody to get offended. Because as soon as you call somebody something that they don't like,
right,
now they have a reason to be offended. And hell, you don't even fucking know what you did.
I disagree. I mean, I've misgendered friends by accident, and they haven't been offended. They just said, I'm not that gender. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I forgot. Sorry.
Yeah, and I've seen people who
But I've not seen someone
offended.
get really offended.
I've seen people get really offended.
Someone get offended is if you intentionally misgender them. In other words, like someone said, I identify as a female. Okay, man, whatever, guy,
yes,
dude.
Yeah, right.
When you intentionally misgender them, then yes, they get offended.
But not everybody.
Or if they told you 100 times.
But not everybody. I mean, not all trans, not all trans look like the gender they're trying to identify with. And so some people, I can just switch it over. If you want to be labeled as whatever, if you want to be known for whatever gender, I don't care. I'm making that switch. In my brain, I just switch.
Right.
And I'm pretty good most of the time. But not everybody can do that. And so, because they can't, Todd.
Why not?
Because their brain isn't capable of it.
Look at America right now. No. Hold on, Todd.
No.
All right, look at this. Look who we got voted in for fucking president, and you really got the balls to say, well, why can't you?
Why can't
Because they're close fucking minded idiots.
And I'll tell you why. I'll tell you everybody can, because everybody does. And I'm going to give you a perfect example. Okay? Have you ever met someone's cat?
Where
sure.
You can't tell what the gender is.
And
yes,
you say,
you know what?
"Oh, what a handsome little boy." And they go, "No, the cat's a girl." And you go, "Oh, I'm sorry. What a handsome little girl." And then forever you call that cat a girl.
No.
Now you don't know if that cat's really a girl.
My ex-mother-in-law called every animal a he. Every dog was a he.
What?
Every cat was a he. Yeah, that's what she did.
Even if you, so if you're who is this now? Your ex-mother-in-law? Okay, so if your ex-mother-in-law was walking down the street and someone was pushing a baby in a stroller, and that baby was dressed in a non-traditional gender color, like yellow or something like that, or green, let's say, and they were pushing the baby stroller, and there was nothing about the stroller or the clothing to identify what the gender.
Animal, Todd.
Wait. Now, if your ex-mother-in-law said, "Oh, what a handsome little boy," and the person said, "She's a girl," would she continue to refer to the baby as a boy?
That's the way she was.
What? Even if the parent said, she's a girl.
Fuck yeah, she would. And you know what?
And that's your standard Trump voter.
And people say
Well,
that what a beautiful baby. When we don't know,
then I'm sorry. Your ex-mother-in-law was a
when
fucking
we
idiot.
don't know,
I don't know how to tell you this.
when we don't know what the gender is with a baby, Todd, we say, "What a beautiful baby."
Okay, so you intentionally use something non-binary to
yes.
comment
Yes.
about the baby. So you're conscious in your mind that this thing I cannot gender identify it based on any of the quote unquote societal cues for quote unquote gender identifying. So I'm going to use something non-binary to define this. But most people, when you're talking about a cat or some other animal that you can't tell the gender of, if they mispresume the gender and you say, so-and-so's a boy, they'll go, oh, I didn't know. Okay, and they'll start referring to the cat as a boy.
I still heard people turn it around and say, and I've done that. I've told people, like my dog is a male or the female or whatever, and they'll still make the mistake even though they can't see the gender, even though you can't tell by looking at their face whether they're a boy or a girl.
Well, why?
Because
so maybe you've encountered assholes more than I have.
I don't think that
most
makes
people I've
them
encountered,
an
if you
asshole.
correct them on the gender,
I don't think that makes them an asshole.
Well, if I tell you, if I say, look, my wall is brown, and they say, yeah, that's a nice green wall, and I say, no, actually it's brown, and they go, oh, okay, well it's still a nice green wall. Then I'm going to conclude that they're kind of an asshole because I've already told them the truth, the way it is.
Or maybe there is a shade of green in it. Who fucking cares? Why the fuck do you get so offended about it? I don't.
What do you mean?
You know what? If they want to call my dog a boy and it's a girl, I don't fucking care.
I guess I've encountered maybe just better people.
No.
I don't know.
God, you're such a judgy McJudgerton.
I don't know. A judgy McJudgerton.
Yeah. This whole you better.
Hello, my name is Judgy McJudgerton.
Because they can remember the gender that you told them. They have a better memory.
It's a matter of fucking courtesy.
Well,
if I was walking my daughter and someone said, "Oh, you're such a handsome little boy," and I said, "That's actually my daughter. She's a girl," and they continued to refer to her as a boy, I'm going to get fucking pissed. Because they're not courteous. It's completely discourteous.
You can't force people to be courteous.
Well, yes, but I can ignore people who aren't, and I can consider them to be
less than.
Okay, you don't want to play nice in society, therefore you are excluded from my corner of the society.
And they're less than.
No, I just exclude them from me.
You hang out with better people, which implies that people who aren't courteous are less than.
I'm going to imply that people who aren't courteous are less than. Yes, I'm exactly going to imply that. Because they're fucking assholes.
Wow.
Well, I mean, labels. It's not just in gendering, and it's not in.
No, it's not. It's all kinds of things.
Even your relationship or type of relationship. It's poly, open relationship or open. Yeah, open. What is it?
It's complicated.
Relationship anarchy. It's complicated. I mean, there's what was it, 7? We did a show on 7 different types of non-monogamy.
I thought.
I thought relationship anarchy down to the same thing.
I thought relationship anarchy defined somebody. Like that was a label they put on themselves. Oh, it's the anarchist.
No. Relationship anarchy was kind of developed as a way to distance from stigma of poly.
Okay.
That's where
there's the relationship anarchist. Is that an option on FET?
Yeah. Yeah. I think so.
I'm asking Paul because he's on FET right now looking.
I'm not looking.
Oh, I thought you were.
No.
I'm not.
I was earlier, but I'm looking at other things so I can continue this conversation of hate.
Fuel my hate fire.
Fuel my hate fire.
Well, I mean, there are so let me be really upfront here, Tony. There are some people that I will look down upon. There's a lot of people I will actually look down upon, and part of that is because how well do those people play with others? In other words, are they going to stand on this rock and say, it's my way or the highway and fuck all of you, I'm going to do it this exact way and I'm not bending? Because that's not how you incorporate yourself into an effective society. The way you incorporate yourself into an effective society is to say, you know what, I have my principles and I believe in these certain things, but this kind of thing over here, I get it. Okay, I could bend on that. You tell me it's a girl. Okay, it's a girl. Cool. I'll remember it's a girl, and I'll just call it a girl. And I do it with dogs and cats and babies all the time.
I don't get why it matters, Todd. Why it matters if
with
somebody,
a cat?
if they don't want, if they just want to live their
cats.
lives and they don't give a flying fuck, they left the house with a dozen fucks and they're going to come home with 12, and they just happen to cross your path and they didn't give out a fuck to you. Who cares? No,
because you have to give a
you
fuck.
do not.
That's how people get along in society.
No,
that's how we function.
Hello, who's
Yes,
the president?
He was put there by people who were stupid and didn't give a fuck. That's the problem. That's why we have president right now. Because people wanted to grind their fucking heels in and they didn't want to cooperate and be a part of a functioning society, and they just went, fuck you. We don't give a shit about your opinion.
They were ignorant and they believed the bullshit that he handed out.
Now I get why, without labels, we don't really have a vocabulary to discuss oppression. So I get some of it. And I also get that
oppression is a label.
But I also get that, by requesting people not to use labels, especially to describe sexuality, it sort of creates the idea of silencing someone who feels oppressed. Like the gay community, the trans community. I can see how that could make it difficult for discussing things in their arena. But we've gotten so crazy with the labels at this point. It's gone beyond crazy. It's now there's so many labels that you almost have to carry around a pocket dictionary just to remember them all, or a thesaurus or whatever, urban dictionary to remember them all. And God forbid that you do get it wrong, because I have run across people who just flip the fuck out because you get it wrong. And quite honestly, I think they're just a bit over fucking sensitive at that point. I mean,
and are there people who are oversensitive about it? Absolutely. Absolutely there are. There are people who are, I think there are people who are overly sensitive about it, and I think there are people who are underly sensitive about it. You know what I mean? Right. There are people on both sides of that spectrum.
Right, I get you. Obviously. And I agree, but still, aren't we just complicating things by creating 200 labels for the same basic idea?
Maybe.
Yeah, because now I got to be a walking fucking dictionary.
We might be, but labels have kind of always been around.
Yes, but now they're getting excessive.
That's how we understand the world around us. Like, if I tell you I'm a liberal, you automatically know kind of what my political stance on certain issues is going to be.
Depending on how far liberal you go. Because, if you go too far to the right or too far to the left, you're just fucking crazy.
I don't. I don't, because I just don't even pretend to know what liberal means, and I just ignore it.
Let's say if I say I'm a liberal, you're probably going to assume my stance on abortion, right?
Nope.
No.
Oh, okay. Well, that's like a card carry. It's like on the membership requirements and everything, I think.
Obviously, I'm not a liberal.
We do that because it helps us. It's like a shorthand for us.
Because we're lazy.
When we have a label, we can go. Well, it also helps you kind of identify with it.
Here's my problem with being liberal or Republican.
The same way.
Here's my problem being liberal, Republican, libertarian, socialist, fascist, blah, blah.
It's Democrat, Republican, and it's liberal and conservative.
Right. Yeah, I'm sorry.
Whatever.
Democrat, Republican.
Of course he has to correct you.
I'm
just saying, one's a party and one's a mentality.
Right. That's a good correction. Valid. I think part of the problem with the whole political process is now we've got right wanting to fuck left. They don't give a fuck about anybody else or anything else. They just want to fuck the left. The left just wants to fuck the right. And you can see that over and over and over and over and over in the media at this point. So Republicans want to fuck Democrats. Democrats want to fuck Republicans. And nobody's doing anything to help the people in and of itself. So where do these labels actually help anything? All it says is you stand on one side of this line as opposed to the other side of this line for your warring tribe. So that's
and so we don't have to talk
politics,
to anybody.
If we didn't have the labels, just an idea, if we didn't have the labels and we worked as a people together for the common good, do we really need a label for that?
Well, I'm not saying that we do. What I'm saying though is that we have always had labels.
That doesn't make them right.
We were in a cave, and we know that tribe over there calls themselves Ugs, and we call ourselves Args, and we want to know, are you an UG or an ARG? You know,
I get you. No, I truly do. But does that make it right?
Are you with us or against us? Why can't we say that?
Or why can't we find a way to, hey, the name of the show says it all. Why can't we find a way to ascend? I mean, I get it if you're talking about oppression and things of that nature, that labels are going to end up being required for certain discussions. I get it. Because without the vocabulary, you can't even get your message across. But there comes a point in time when the subject matter in and of itself has got to stop being about the labels and be about the problem as a whole.
What's behind it?
And
what's behind it? Yeah.
It's just with the gun control thing right now. I'm watching it on Facebook. I got friends on both sides of the fence, and I don't care which side of the fence you stand on, but both of them are sitting there entrenched in their thing, and they're not actually thinking about. Neither side's actually wanting to give or compromise or talk, really. It's, I hate you and I hate you, and that's it. And this is what I see labels constantly doing. It entrenches people into a thought process and a box that doesn't let them escape. Whether it compartmentalizes it for them or not is irrelevant. They need to ascend past it.
Why is compromise so good? I want to ask that question. What is the benefit of compromise?
Well, if you don't want to compromise, then you go to war and the strongest one wins. That's the only difference.
Or the smartest one.
No,
compromise is to help avoid a war.
Always. Not always. Sometimes you can, sometimes you can educate and enlighten and make people aware of things they maybe didn't think of, in which case you'll kind of get to, instead of a compromise. Okay, so I'm going to give you a perfect example.
Analogy.
No, it's not an analogy. It's not. No, it's not.
When you say it isn't, it always is.
No, it's
not. Go ahead.
The Constitution was a compromise.
Mm-hmm.
The United States Constitution was a compromise. And one of those compromises was for black people to be 3/5 of a person.
Right.
For representation, we're going to count black people as 3/5 of a human being. That was the compromise. Now, that's kind of a horrifying compromise. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yes. No, I don't disagree with that being a horrifying compromise. But in the sign of the times,
question in my mind,
you also got to look at the times. At those times,
is compromise good?
What I'm trying to say is, I can certainly sit down and talk to an avowed homophobe, okay, and I can certainly have a discussion with somebody who is a complete homophobe or a complete racist or a complete Nazi, for that matter. But to compromise with someone of that mentality, what's the compromise? Well, okay, so we'll only exterminate a third of the Jews. Or how's that? Is that a good compromise?
Sometimes it's not always black and white, Todd.
Yeah, it's not, and that's
compromise is really that gray area.
I'm not saying it's always black and
compromise
white.
Is that gray area.
It's black and white.
Yeah, I mean, certain things, obviously, that kind of thing, genocide, extermination, there really isn't a compromise involved in that.
Okay, I mean, when you talk to racists, the compromise is how many people of another non-white race would you accept being disenfranchised from the system?
See, I'm not talking about compromise in that form or fashion. That's not humans. Humans are humans. There shouldn't be compromise in the fact of a human is worth a human. Period. It doesn't matter what you're
talking more like gun control.
I'm talking
policy
about policy and society.
Gotcha. Okay.
Not as a gay race type thing. Those I don't. There's no compromise because it is what it is, and people are human, and they should all be treated equal. Period. Doesn't matter what your sex, gender, race, creed, color, none of that matters. You're human.
You remember civil unions? Remember back in the I'm going to say the late 90s, early 2000s? Everybody was, the people who were against gay marriage were against gay marriage, and they said absolutely not, no way, no how, never, 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 never. And then about 2005 or so, they started modifying it a little bit and saying, well, we'd be okay if gay people had something like a marriage, but we'll call it something else, then it's not marriage. And then they can have their thing that's not marriage, but it's kind of like a marriage. Right. And then the straight people will still have marriage. That was the compromise that was offered. Okay.
And I'm not saying we should have taken that compromise or that we accepted that compromise. We kept pushing.
Right.
So
Right.
I mean, there are, like I said, again, there are certain things that just shouldn't be compromised. But when you start talking about,
The question is always how you figure out what you should and shouldn't compromise on. That's always the tough
well,
one.
yeah, I guess I could,
You know?
I could agree with that.
Right. And everybody's view is different.
But when
Mhm.
you're talking about right and left, and most of it in the policies, I don't care whether you're right or left. Everybody should be treated equal to the pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. So
Mhm.
that's we're going to start trailing off into politics land here in a second, but
Oh
yeah, we don't want to go into that. But
In a second?
yeah, I know we've kind of been in it for a minute. But, the point is again,
I was going to say we better for 5
I know
minutes.
it comes back down into the whole labeling thing, and I still think we need to
But labels
belong.
lead into it.
We need to figure out a way past the labels to ascend the labels. I understand labels being in vocabulary to have a discussion.
I think it
But-
prevents people from actually communicating in a
I think it prevents people from actually thinking out of the box and going
having
beyond
a
it.
fucking conversation where
Well, he's
we're
gay. I can't talk to him.
well, I think that it's like I don't want to. I'm not going to describe to you what it is. I'm just going to throw a label out there.
I mean, and that's the kind of bullshit that people got to ascend past. And I think part of that comes from labeling and creating. There's a stigma to each label, whether it's a good stigma, bad stigma, negative or neutral stigma. There's stigma to every fucking label.
I think sometimes we can get too attached to the labels. I agree. Like I will call myself something, or I will identify with a group that has this label. But at some point we get a little too attached to it, I think, where it's hard to, but the problem is getting people beyond it. I mean, how do you get people to think past
It isn't getting rid of the labels. It's getting rid
Yeah.
of the fucking
The mentality,
attitude.
right? It's not. I'm not saying get rid of all the labels, but I am saying let's find a way to educate beyond the labels. Let's start thinking outside the goddamn box.
Can we use a
for
2x4?
change. Let's think about ways to fix the inequalities as opposed to just well, I'm a staunch Republican. I'm gonna shoot all the gays and I hate blacks and blah blah blah. I mean, we got to get
know
past
how
this
you do
bullshit.
that, Paul.
You're not going to do that.
Well, I guess each generation is it starts with one, right? Just one listener out
Get
there.
rid of religion.
We change one person's mind or thought process up from listening to the audience, and I guess that's part of the whole domino effect.
You
theory.
get rid of religion.
Religion would help. Religion is
I
a
think
big problem.
Organized religion.
Yeah, I don't care if you have a belief, but the organized power.
I think
is
what you see a lot of
the
times,
Because they're the one that spread the
at least,
fucking
at
hate.
least this is kind of what I think I've noticed is younger people, and I'm talking younger people probably in the 30 or younger group, down to teenagers, use and have a lot more labels, but they don't mean as much hardcore to them, if that makes sense. In other words, they're doing better than previous generations have with getting beyond the labels, with thinking outside of the labels. They use them to help kind of understand themselves and maybe understand other people, but they don't confine themselves to only being about that label, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Or there's the older people who go, they're all fucking stupid. They're
Well,
eating Tide Pods.
Yeah, that's us Gen Xers, but 'cause you got
No, they're fucking eating Tide
I
Pods.
don't.
we're Gen Xers. Then you've got your 20 to 40-year-olds who are considered the millennials, and then anyone under 20 is considered Gen Z, Generation Z now.
I'm a baby boomer, so
Are you
What do I
right
know?
at the cusp? You're at the cusp. Now.
I'm right at the cutoff. Yeah, technically I'm a baby boomer. If I'd have been born a year later, I'd be Gen X.
Okay.
But I think what young people are doing is great. I think they're fucking brilliant. Honestly,
Yeah, but some of them.
I think
oh
my
God.
generation's fucking stupid.
Yeah, but there's
They just-
there's some of them that you just got to hold your head and go, Jesus Christ, these are the kids of the future.
Oh shit! Our great grandparents were swallowing goldfish and sitting on fucking flagpoles. Okay, so everybody in their 20s does stupid shit. That's how it works. And everybody in their 20s, the people who are in their 40s and 50s go, well, this generation's gonna ruin the goddamn world, and they're stupid. They don't know anything. That's just perpetual, man. It happens every generation. Every generation looks at the one behind it and goes, wow, they're just dumb.
Well, yeah, and to a point, that's always going to be the way it is. I grew up and liked the music my parents liked, but most kids didn't. They don't like the music that their parents like. They've got the new, with us it was rock and roll, baby.
I like the music my dad listened to. My dad had really good taste.
Yeah, well, I was raised on country music and bluegrass and folk, and I still like the stuff.
I like bluegrass.
Those are labels.
Yeah, why can't music get out of labels, man?
I know, right? Well, music.
They tried it with country crossover, and that didn't really work very well.
Yeah, I don't know how you could actually ascend past the label in music, but I guess there's a point to certain labels, and it just sticks in my fucking craw all the time with all these fucking labels anymore. I guess that's my biggest bitch is that
I hate when new ones pop up.
Yeah, they seem to
like this whole CIS thing.
Week.
It's like, really?
That's not
really
new. That's not new.
Really?
No.
Then I'm slow.
That's not new.
I refuse to watch the news. Just saying.
That's not new.
She doesn't read the news. She doesn't.
That's been around a long while.
She doesn't read the news. She doesn't
How
read
long?
the paper. She doesn't read anything news.
Well, you know what? I'm looking it up right now to see how long it's been around.
Because
long time.
CIS gender. So it really kind of started based on a 2-part 1991 article.
So 91.
yeah, but mainstream. I just saw it on FET.
CIS gender has its origin in the Latin-derived prefix cis, meaning on this side.
I don't need the definition.
Which means the opposite of trans.
Right.
I totally didn't know about camel toe until like 10 years ago.
What about moose knuckle? Did you know about moose knuckle? Oh, okay.
Honestly, I don't think I know what that is.
I had someone use that term before, and I didn't know what it was either.
Oh, fuck.
Back in the 90s, I heard someone use it, and I'm like, okay, whatever.
Someone trying to get a thing going or something, and
apparently it was like to him it was a more extreme version of camel toe.
Wow, that's pretty
offensive, right?
That's even more offensive than camel toe, and camel toe is kind of offensive.
Yeah, camel toe is hot. What are you talking about?
Todd's no longer allowed. He's no longer allowed peanut M&Ms during the podcast because he's acting crazy. We can hear you crunching.
I know.
Can't you just lean away from the mic when you're chewing? I can still hear it.
I'll have to work.
I got a really good mic. What do you want me to do?
Work on editing that out later.
Why? We already told him I'm eating peanut
Only
M&Ms.
if you edit in things for me.
I don't know. To a point, labels could help with solidarity.
That's back to my original statement. I think they help, but I do think they hurt too because they can box you in. Like I'm a cis male, heterosexual. Now I'm boxed into that. So if I ever want to do something outside of that, people are going to go, "What?"
Right.
I don't. But I'm just saying, if I ever did, people would be freaked out. They wouldn't know how to relate to that because now I'm not in the box anymore.
But generally, isn't it? They just refer to cis male only when they're hetero.
No,
or is it cis male no matter what sexuality that you judge?
You can be cis male homosexual, and cis male just means that you identify as a male, you present as a male, and you were born a male. That's really all it is, or vice versa. Female.
Gotcha.
In other words, you're a cis male. Tony is a cis female.
Women don't refer to themselves like that.
Well, that's
because you know why?
That's what the term is.
We don't fucking care.
You don't have labels?
We don't fucking care.
Well, see, Paul,
I don't care if you were born with a dick.
It doesn't even apply to
I don't care if you were.
Women don't have labels.
I don't care if you were born with a dick or you had one surgically implanted. Don't fucking care.
But what if you don't have a dick and you're still a male?
I don't care either. Strap one of them motherfuckers on.
Generally, we don't care that much either.
Oh, yes, you do. Yes, men do.
No, if you tell me you're a woman, I'm just going to call you her from now on. If you tell me I identify as a
Jim
female.
Carrey movie where they
I don't know.
Where he was the one chick turned out to be a dude, and then the whole police force was puking because they had all kissed her. Mr. Winky.
Yeah. Which, talk about offensive to trans people. Holy shit. I mean, if you tell me, if you come up to me and say, and then you look like a male and you present as a male, but you tell me that you identify as a female, then and you would prefer to be called Miss or Miss, Mrs. or Ms. or whatever, then that's what I'm going to call you, or her, or whatever. That's what I'm going to call you. I don't care. I'm not going to question it. I'm just going to say, okay, that's what you want to be called.
But why do I need this fucking CIS shit?
Because it is what it is. It's just another. It's another.
How about
another
how about just everybody goes up to everybody else and you make them tell you what gender they want to be referred to?
Well, you could do that. What gender would you like me to refer to you as? Or
I mean, don't we do that when we say title?
The they, them type labels.
What is your surname?
No, surname is like your last name.
What's the one? What's the first one? Title. Yeah,
the
Mr.,
title, your
Mrs.,
prefix?
Ms. Whatever happened to that shit?
I prefer His Holiness. But, you know.
You said His Holiness.
Yes.
Or Reverend Doctor. Reverend Doctor is good for me.
Are you a doctor?
Prefer. Why not?
No.
I'm a Reverend.
No.
I could be a doctor
No,
too.
but you got to have that PhD to be a legal doctor.
What about the doctors on the infomercials?
They got to have some kind of PhD or something.
I'm gonna look that up. See if you can actually label yourself as doctor or something. I know you can't practice medicine without a license. That is a given.
And you can't be a lawyer without passing the bar.
But can you call yourself that?
But can you call yourself doctor without a PhD? Or that's my question.
I mean, if you're using it as a kink slang, then yeah, what the fuck? But no one's going to take you as a serious doctor anyway. Generally,
I was gonna say nobody takes me as a serious reverend.
Nope.
Because that's the question I get asked. I got asked that question 8 times, by the way, at the Dirty Show.
Are you really
a reverend? And I'm like, well,
why? Yes,
how
I
would
am.
you define that? I mean, seriously.
Kneel down and let me give.
Why didn't you just go yes?
Because I said, well, it depends on how you define reverend. Yes, I am, but I mean, it depends on how you define. Do I legally have a ministerial card? Yes, I do.
So you're just looking for an excuse to fucking talk to somebody, because why couldn't you just go, yes?
Because I was curious how they viewed that.
People like me and Todd can't just say
why
yes.
would I want to say just yes?
That's too black
Why
and
would
white.
I just want to say yes?
It's too black and white.
Because it's a yes or no question.
No, it's
never a
not.
Yes or no question.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not.
For gray people, it's never a yes or no
That
question.
is
There's
a yes or
another
no
label
question.
for gray people.
We're aliens. We're the grays.
We're the grays. See, and that's one of the
You're sickly then.
We're ill.
Tony sees everything very black and white, and I've always seen everything very gray.
Do you? Do you really see, Tony? You see everything kind of like in a binary. It's this or this kind of thing.
Oh
really?
Yes.
Have you always been that way? I mean, have you always viewed the world
it's
that
a
way?
product. It's a product of an abused childhood.
Yeah, it's a product of her race.
So is it a product of like? I mean, what have you been diagnosed with? You said before, but I couldn't remember. I can't remember.
PTSD.
Okay. Is it a product? So it's a product kind of a PTSD?
No, it's not a product of PTSD. It's a product of children who were abused abuse in childhood has a tendency to force that behavior.
So it's a byproduct, really, of your upbringing, an unintentional byproduct.
Yes, it's a survival instinct,
Gotcha.
right?
Which can create, fun when someone who's very black and white is with someone who's very gray minded, and it can make for interesting communication issues at the same time.
He says interesting. What he really means is frustrating as fuck.
Well, I have a very difficult time with. I can't look at things in a black and white manner because there's always something kind of in the middle somewhere. But
no, there's not.
Well, there is to me.
Yeah,
that's a product of
because you put it there. Because you put it there.
No, I'm just as right as you are.
My father was kind of black and white. Now, I was raised kind of black and white as far as way of thinking goes. It's this or this, right or wrong, up, down, blah, blah, blah. But I rejected it. The one thing that my father always did to me was whenever he was yelling was, you got to think, you got to use that goddamn pea brain God gave you before you act. Think about it before you say something. It was always think. And but even though he was really black and white, him constantly preaching think just makes a person gray. because now you actually have to think about everything after you've been had that beat into you your whole life. You start thinking about everything before you respond.
I think that's an introvert.
No, I'm not really well, I'm an introverted extrovert.
The communication of
I know
it's more direct and indirect, because direct is yes or no. Indirect is,
well, maybe
these questions, or it's not getting to the point. It's an analogy.
Analogies help very many people. They just don't help you.
No, because she's very black and white. So the analogy.
You don't know how many people.
I've been told by many people that my analogies are helpful to them in understanding something.
Well, they would never tell you, dude, except me. Whatever say.
Oh, no.
I don't fucking need an analogy.
Some of them
just fucking confuses me.
Some of them might not tell me that, but there's more than a couple that actually would say, "What the fuck was that? That was stupid." There's more than a couple. Trust me.
And that's another label, analogies.
Well, I mean, everything's a label. You're talking about language. Every word is so every word in our language is a shortcut to describing something. If I use the word apple, you immediately conjure a picture in your head. It's a label.
No, I think of an analogy.
No, you don't. You conjure a picture in your head.
You used another fucking analogy.
Well, no, Tony, banana. What are you thinking of?
Blowjob.
You what?
Okay.
What?
Orange. What are you thinking of?
What happened?
If I say any fruit, are you going to say blowjob? That's what you're thinking of?
Wow. So
we use that. Yeah. We use the language to shortcut the thing that we're talking about. You know what I mean?
And I like to just disconnect from that whole fucking language thing and make my own shit up, because it makes for a much more entertaining conversation. At least in my head. No, it's like when you say banana and I think blowjob, or you say orange and I think tumor. It leads for a very interesting conversation in my head.
All right. Well, most people think of the fruit that you say. That's what most people come up with. So we don't have to describe, fruit grows on trees, kind of long, kind of yellow, skinny. You peel away the thing every time we're talking about a banana. So yes, it's a label, which helps people.
But I don't make you do that. I just think blowjob.
And in which case I will go also a valid interpretation of a banana, because you can give a blowjob to a banana.
You can get a blowjob to anything.
A fire hydrant? Because I will pay good money to see that.
I'll do it.
All right.
Challenge accepted.
You're on.
Wow. So yeah, I mean, we talking about this and ranting a bit. I mean, we can honestly agree that there are a need for labels, especially when it comes to language and being able to communicate. But there's got to be, I mean, for fuck's sake, there's got to be a limit to it at some point. We can't use
label locks you in.
Right. Thank you. That's the best way.
Don't become a slave or a victim to your own labels to the point where you're now boxed into those labels and you can't break out of them, because you might now want to be something else or more than that label. You know what I mean? You might want to be seen as more than that, and now it's tough. It's going to be tough because you've locked yourself into that label.
Exactly.
But only if you lock yourself in. You're the only one that locks yourself in.
It's easy for people to do.
But you can.
But you do it to yourself.
People do it though. People do it.
Doesn't matter.
People do things to themselves all the time.
Well, those people are assholes.
Another label.
No. The other people I said were assholes are assholes. Everybody can't be an asshole.
Oh, yes, they can.
They probably can. You're right.
Well, I mean, we're talking to a woman who has a plate that says "I hate you." So,
by the way, I can call myself a doctor anytime I want.
So she's an equal opportunity hater. So it doesn't matter what your label is; she can just hate you.
So now I'm Reverend Dr. Todd. By the way, just so you know.
Yeah,
that's my label, and I'm sticking with it.
You can stick with it all you want.
He's just looking for women to flirt with. When they
Reverend
ask
Doctor,
him, are you really a doctor, Todd? Will you do my mammogram?